Hi, everyone. I'm investigative reporter Claudia Vargas, and with me is our senior investigative producer, Jim O'Donnell. Hopefully, you guys all just finished watching our new documentary, Somebody Knows Something, The Disappearance of Dulce, that just aired on NBC 10 and our streaming platforms. And we're going to give you guys a little behind the scenes as to how we put this thing together. Jim, I guess to start off, now that I think for me at least, this was like the first time I truly saw it without, editing anything. And just kind of saw it straight through. What was your impression, or what was kind of like your takeaway or your?
Yeah, it's definitely the first time we've seen it not starting and stopping a million times to say, can we go back to look at that? Is that music right? Is that the right soundbite? What are you saying in your recorded track? All of that stuff. So yeah, it's still the story of Dulce is still fascinating and in a super sad way that it's emotionally gripping in the sense that it's a horrible story, and working on something like this sticks with you. I think when we do these documentaries, as we've done in the past, and we seem to do ones that are very heavy in terms of the emotional toll.
Very sad. Absolutely. Well, yeah, and I'm a new mom, and it's sort of it takes an even tougher, it sort of makes it even harder to think about that once you've been a parent for a while, but new mom, so that's always tough to see these kinds of cases. But kind of the hope of them, right, is that by airing this, by giving it some publicity, that people will see something. And as the documentary is called Somebody Knows Something, the hope is that somebody who knows something will come forward and try to put an end to this case and reunite Dulce with her family. I mean, that's at least kind of how I saw it, or what helped me get through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of who we are at NBC 10, Telemundo 62, even Philadelphia Sports, NBC Sports, Philadelphia, the triopoly and the stations that we are like one, and our goal is to help the community. And this is one of those ways where we can tell this story. As horrible as the story is, I think we all hope for a good outcome and a positive outcome for Dulce and her family. And that's why we put the QR code up, we put the numbers out, we tell these stories so people can take notice. And I think as we've known from the social media interactions we've had, that people are actually taking notice, and it's been some positive feedback. And I think that yeah, it has been it's something else, especially with, again, heavy topic, sad, heavy topic, and to sit through it. When did we start working on this?
Oh boy, probably back in March, I think. I think that was our first interview with Noema, and that was really tough because we sat with her. I think, was it 2 hours, and just went through the whole story. And that was, and I appreciated that she like really opened up to us. She's just naturally somebody of a very quiet demeanor, and she thankfully got comfortable enough with us to share some some really personal parts of her life, and also what happened that day. We spent a lot of time with her. It wasn't just that one interview in March, but then over the summer, we went back several times. And, I feel like every time we met with her, we learned something new. So I think that's always useful with working on some of these long-term pieces, to meet with, especially, I would consider her the like subject of this, or not, Dulce is a subject, but she's the mom. So she's a big character in this. And just spending a lot of time with her really helped put together the story and get that perspective of, what the family has been through.
And I think when we do these types of things, I think you're right. We have to spend time with the people we're talking to and give them time. They've got to get comfortable with us as well. You ask very hard questions. You ask the prosecutor, who at one point said that you should be a lawyer because you're asking her so many questions about it. So that was it's what we do. We ask hard questions, and in order to get some people more comfortable, we spend more time with them. But it doesn't mean we're asking easier questions. I think in Noema's case, you were still asking hard questions of her even as of like today, right? So that's the thing.
And that's how we have to keep it balanced, right? Like, we can't just I don't know. I think in order to get to the truth, we sometimes have to push people, because not everybody's so open, right? And so it's, what really happened, or and I'm trying to think of a specific example of what you're referring to with the prosecutor, who bristled at some of my questions. But we're just trying to put together the most accurate timeline that we can, and and provide as much detail and help the people understand how this little girl just seemed to almost have vanished into thin air. And as I pointed out to her, like, nobody really disappears. So like, what happened here? Was she abducted? Is she still lost somewhere? Could she have fallen into a lake somewhere? And, there were so many possibilities. And so I really wanted to drill down as to what, based on the evidence that they've gathered, what their theory is. So that's, I think that's kind of just how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly why she said that you were a lawyer, but I know that she anytime with law enforcement, when especially a missing kid, or maybe worse when we did the story about Barbara Jean Horn, who was murdered, that law enforcement isn't necessarily opening up their doors to us. So it's it's harder for us to tell the story without full access to certain things. So let's talk a little bit about that. How do we do this? How do we do this as reporters, to get in there and say, wow, I need you to tell me everything you know, because I have to tell this story.
Well, in this case, it starts off with a really good, convincing producer like yourself, because you're the one who got us the law enforcement interviews. And I remember that initially, I don't think any of them wanted to speak to us. They said, whatever we had to say, we already said. There's nothing new in the case. Like, here's what we've previously said, and like basically sent us, I think, like written, Q&As that they had previously given other reporters. And so I don't know, like I'll get to like the questioning, but like you're the one who somehow convinced them to, like, all of them to sit down with us, which was great.
Yeah, I mean, I think my opening line, or one of the opening lines, is that we're fair. We're not out to there. We don't do gotcha interviews. We ask hard questions and hold people accountable, but we're fair to everybody.
Mhm.
And I think when you watch the documentary and watch the special, that you see that we're not.
Yeah.
There's no sides in this. The side is Dulce's side, and to
Mhm.
try to get um, her name out there more, as much as we can. We
Yeah,
have
and I think a perfect example of that really was the Amber Alert. Oh, that's right. And I just saw a comment there. Yeah, if anybody has questions, feel free to ask us. We spent a lot of time on this, so happy to answer any questions you might have.
There's one for
Um,
you.
oh yeah, we have one. Do you know what really happened to her because they never found her body? Well, Marisol, law enforcement actually still believes that she's alive somewhere. So we did get that from several people, that they haven't found a body, and therefore they have no reason to believe that she's dead. So they're still hopeful that she's alive. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
think we all should be. I think that's something
Mhm.
we should all be hopeful that
Yeah.
that's true. But yeah, feel free to ask us any questions. If we can answer them, we will.
Mhm.
But you were talking about the Amber Alert.
Right. Yeah. No, I was going to say that a good example of like being fair and just, even though we have to ask questions people might not like, was the Amber Alert. Obviously, there were concerns from not just mom, but some people in the community that they waited too long for this Amber Alert. So we asked that, why was there a delay? And state police explained, and I think we are fair about explaining it on the documentary and in the stories we've done, that there's certain criteria that needs to be met. They, like in New Jersey, they have a very strict policy. And part of it is that they needed some sort of evidence that the child was abducted, and there weren't any cameras at the playground, so they didn't have an actual visual. They had to interview witnesses, and one of those witnesses was a child, which takes longer to interview.
Right.
And so, so we got that out of the interview, and that's great because we can explain to people why there was that perceived delay. So I think that's, something that I would point to as that we were fair. So even though we ask questions that law enforcement might not want to answer, in the end, it's to really explain how the process works and why things worked out the way that they did.
And so one of the big components is the 911 call. Obviously, we start
Yeah.
with the 911 call. It's pretty riveting to hear Noema call 911.
Mhm.
Let's talk a little bit about the delay in calling 911, or at
Mhm.
least a perceived delay, because Noema didn't realize her daughter was abducted.
Right. She thought she was playing hide and seek. She even at one point says, I was actually like upset at her. I kept telling her name. I thought she was just still hiding from me. So she kept searching everywhere, went to the little woods, searched around the sheds because that's where the little brother was pointing to. Couldn't find her. So it wasn't until 40 minutes later that she called police. And then we also found out that she didn't even call police right away. She first called her brother. And when I asked her about that, she said, like she didn't think like she felt that it needed to be up at a very high level to call police for there to be a problem. And I think she was just hoping that she was just going to find Dulce, or expecting that she was going to find her. So she called her brother first to come with the dog. She was like, oh, maybe somebody did take her. But even then, she still wasn't thinking, let me call police. And I've never been in that position. I can't imagine what that's like, but I'm sure her mind was just racing with what to do, what makes sense. So police did say that because she waited 40 minutes, that probably impacted them, really sealing off the park and trying to make sure that they got who was in there at the time and anybody who was leaving. So, but one of the things that I wanted to mention that we didn't really get a chance to get into the documentary is when we spoke with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, they said, they deal with these cases all the time. And they say their biggest advice to people are just, if your child at any moment is missing, like you can't find them, don't wait, like just call police right away. They said, police would rather just find the kid behind the tree under something within 5 minutes than have a situation where they're dealing with something like Dulce, a potential abduction, and then be way too late in the game to try to do something about it. So that was kind of a big piece of advice that I think I wanted to share with folks is just, if your kid at any point is missing or you don't see them, for like within where they're supposed to be, definitely just call police and, and they will help you find them, hopefully.
Yeah, they're not going to get mad at you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, speaking of NetMech, I'm going to pull up the latest. There we go. The latest age progression that they put together. What is this? Tell us.
So this is the 4-year age progression composite that they did. So this is what they believe Dulce would look like now at 9 years old. And we actually went down to the NECMEC headquarters, saw how they put together these composites, which we had a little bit of that in the documentary. And it's essentially they take pictures and videos from the family just to see, what the features are like and try to determine what the child would look like at a certain age. And they do these for kids every 2 years as they're missing, just because, children's faces tend to change as they grow. So that's what that was.
And what did you learn from this? I guess I think we always learn something from stories and our storytellers, because I think at heart we are storytellers. What did you learn from this, or what's your takeaway?
I don't know if I necessarily, well, I mean, I learned a lot in terms of like the case itself. And like I said, with Noema, there was always something new that I was learning, but that was specific to the case. I would say more generally, I really appreciated the FBI special agent's sort of, honesty and what he thought, because I don't think we had gotten this perspective before. He put it pretty bluntly that this was a pretty high risk abduction because it was daylight, there were presumably people around. And so he said that it was most likely somebody who was comfortable enough to do this. So either they were familiar with the area or they perhaps had done this before. And he even said, and I think that's one of our final sound bites in the piece, that they might have already interviewed the person who abducted Dulce and they might not even know it. So that to me was pretty, like, I don't know, telling, interesting. I don't know what the right word is, but that was the most striking thing to me in the interviews that we did, that this was, pretty high stakes. And it just, it makes you just wonder what happened a little bit more.
Right. Same.
How about you?
When he said that in the interview, it was, wow, like you think you had contact with this person, and don't realize it yet. For me, there's so much, and I think we've already talked about going back to Noema so many times from the interview and learning another nugget, just the warrant search, or search warrant that was served on their property or their homes with their cell phones and stuff in 2022. So far
3 years after she's been missing.
So that was just a interesting development that at least I didn't know, and I don't think had necessarily been reported on much, if at all, in sort of the curves or twists and turns or left turns, the psychics, that's always when those letters came out, and that was previously reported, but just hearing about them again and realizing the time that law enforcement had to spend.
Right. Well, I think that was the surprising part, that when we spoke to the chief, he was open about how they did pursue some of these. And, and he says, like, it wasted a lot of resources, but we still did it just because we were trying to follow any tip, and they considered those tips. So that was the surprising part for me, because I remember that there had been these psychic letters, but I guess I forgot if they had actually acted on them or not. But just hearing him talk about how they did pursue these, took them seriously, And then, nothing came of them, unfortunately. So it took away from other things investigatively that they could have been doing.
Yeah, and so some things that we have in the piece, I'm going to pull up a couple of them. They're relatively short, so I may have to cycle through them. They're only about 10 seconds long in terms of clips. We don't have video for a lot of things, obviously, because we weren't there
Mhm.
for the events. There are no videos of, for example, Noema in the car with the scratch off and her sister
Yeah.
and her talking to people and just the raid and stuff like that. So we had an artist draw some renderings. So
Mhm.
these are sort of cool. They go quick, but I'll cycle through them.
Yeah, so that's Noem in the car working on her lottery scratch off, and that's Camila, Dulce's aunt, which is Noema's little sister, doing her homework. So that's what was happening while Dulce and Manuel were playing in the playground, just a short distance away.
And then this is once she realizes she's not there.
Yeah, and then stops two random people to ask, "Hey, have you seen my daughter?" She pulls out a picture of Dulce, and the men unfortunately said, "No, we have not seen your daughter."
And our artist is awesome, right? Her name's
Yeah,
Erin.
Aaron. Mhm.
Yeah, she's in LA, or at least in the LA
Yeah,
area, and she's just super talented and
so
really
talented.
captures it. So, like, get like, so what's your description of one of these scenes when you say, "Hey, there was a police
Like, you
raid"?
guys have to come out the house. And they told us we have to leave all the electronics at home.
Noema says detectives from the Cumberland County Prosecutor's Office had a search warrant. She says they took all of the family's cell phones, her laptop, and her mom's new tablet.
Yeah, so for that one, I remember we were talking on the phone with her with various scenes that we had where we didn't have video, and that was one of them. I said, Noema told us about the search warrant that was executed at her house. Like, we have no video of that. Do you think there's anything you can do? And she was like, sure. And then she started asking me a ton of questions that I didn't know the answers to. At first, she's like, well, how many officers? Like, what were they wearing? So I had to go back to Noema and ask her just to give us those details, which she did. I mean, she remembered that they had like short sleeve polos, like the traditional khakis. And so from there, about the number of officers who had showed up and how, and she had described that they gave her the search warrant before they went in. So that's
Yeah,
that image of her outside, taking the paperwork and
and
allowing them inside.
yeah, and we had some not quality cell phone video, if you remember that,
Yeah,
of
yeah.
what was going on.
Yeah, yeah. So we did. So I had asked Noema, like, do you know if anybody got any pictures, any videos, anything? And she did have a friend who had taken a little bit of video and pictures, but they were so far away and so grainy, so we couldn't really use them. But it served our purpose in terms of confirming that this did happen. So that it was useful in that sense. Just we couldn't really use them.
And something Noema, I'm going to put up a comment now that it's similar to things we've heard. Noema lives with this type of stuff every day, right?
Mhm.
That
Yes, I bet the little girl's in Mexico and her mom knows something. Yeah,
yeah,
a lot of people think that either the mom was involved or knows more than she's letting on. This is pretty universal. And we spoke to Nema several times about this. And she says, she admits she wasn't a good mom. She was a teen mom. She was really young. And so she was more focused on partying, had even given up custody of Dulce. So, she says, I understand why people think that about me, but she says, I still loved my kids, even if I didn't have custody or wasn't with them as much as I wish I would have been now. So that's what she tells us. And she says she doesn't really know where her daughter is. And there were a lot of really heartbreaking moments when we interviewed her where you could tell that emotion like really gets to her. I think one moment in particular was when she's in the car or we're both in the car and she's telling us a story and she says how she still has regret of her bad decision that day to let Dulce go unsupervised is what she says. And she was, you could tell that was an actual heartfelt emotion that to this day she still regrets what she did because of what happened. So I think that's something, for people who watch the documentary, if you haven't, hopefully you'll get to watch it when you get a chance. We do get into a lot of that with Noema and what she knows, doesn't know, and why people think this. So, and then as far as Dulce being in Mexico, that comes from the fact that her dad is in Mexico and he was there when she went missing. But we spoke with the FBI and they've said that they've been in touch with the dad's family. They've been down there. They've kept a close eye on them. and they don't have reason to believe that they were involved either. So, so that's what we know at least.
And so, in terms of, we're both investigative journalists, so we
Mhm.
had to not just tell the story, we had to look into some things, and that
Yeah,
was also Dad and his
right.
background. How did we figure all this stuff out? Because some of this stuff had not been reported to our
Reported,
knowledge
right.
before, right?
Yeah, all that had been reported really was that he had been deported, and even that hadn't been confirmed really, I don't think. Just that Noema said, oh, he had been deported. He was in Mexico, and law enforcement had confirmed that he was in Mexico, but we didn't really know details. So we reached out. Well, first we asked law enforcement, then we went to, well, you reached out to ICE and asked them for confirmation that he had been deported,
Mhm.
the reason why. And we were told, I don't think they gave us the specific crime. I just think that they said, and you'll remember this better probably, that he had been convicted of a crime here, and that's why they deported him. Or not one, but like two crimes. So then
Mhm.
I decided to, well, what crime was that? Like, what were you doing? So we looked up the court records, and it was in Cumberland County that he had been convicted of abuse. I forgot the actual term, abuse, neglect, and there's a third one of a child between the ages of 13 and 15. Which, of course, then my mind went, oh my gosh, well, was that Noema? Because he was with her when she was 13. But in looking at the dates, it didn't really match up. So we're still not sure what happened there. But yeah, that was what he was convicted for, and it was a plea deal. Oh, Jackie Rodriguez. Thank you, Jackie. And it was, so Jackie is actually part of the piece. So she was one of the people who got one of these letters that were really cryptic and psychic like. So she shared some of that with us. And you also served, Jackie, as the family spokesperson for some time. So we had some insight into that, which was nice. And that was one of the things that we did. We didn't just talk to law enforcement, the family. We wanted to talk to people in the community who had something to do with it or just remembered. For example, Ivan Lucero, he's a business owner in the area. And early on in the investigation, he went out with his own drone and was like trying to help. And I thought that was one of the things that I thought was, I hate to say nice because it's such a sad and tragic story. But one of the nice things about it was you saw the community come together, and a lot of
Yeah.
people from the community came together to try to help in any way they could. And like Ivan, flying out his drone, he told me he flew it for like 3 hours straight, had to keep changing the battery. And he was like, I was just trying to see if I could see anything, just help in any way. They also pitched in some money that, that went to the fund. And there is still a $75,000 reward for any information that leads to Dulce. So that's still out there. But yeah, it was, it's, in addition to law enforcement, it was a community effort. And we tried to reach out to as many people as we could who had a hand in this or are familiar with Bridgeton. Also, John Cummings comes to mind. He runs South Jersey, or Revive South Jersey. That's a nonprofit that works with a lot of the immigrant community. And we wanted to talk to him just to help us understand Bridgeton. Like, what is this community like? And that, I think, that was a focus at the start of the documentary, just to kind of set the tone of, this is a small town. People kind of know each other. They, it's a big family or a big community of immigrants. And it's been more and more throughout the last 2 or 3 decades. People have come here for work and have stayed and built communities here. So, oh, I found it odd. Okay, Tim's saying, I found it odd the prosecutor found it unsettling to use the word abducted when describing the incident. Yeah, I mean, and that's what I tried to get at, because initially she said, something about Dulce disappeared from here. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Like, nobody really disappears. So do you think, and the way she was describing, I was like, do you think she was abducted? And she said she found that word jarring. But then she said, but yes, we believe Dulce was taken. So, she, I guess, doesn't like to use the word abducted, but has said that they do believe, in fact, that Dulce was taken from the park. And I think that might, and then I might be editorializing here. So Jim, stop me if you think this is wrong. But
I don't know if I can stop you, but go ahead.
But I think part of it comes from the fact that they don't know yet who did this, right? And so there is still the possibility, and Noema has been open about the fact that the family is still suspects. So I guess maybe the taken is just playing it safe because they don't really know who took her, what happened, and perhaps abduction has a different meaning to her. I don't know. I'm just wondering out loud also as well as to why she doesn't like to use the word abducted. But
I think the police chief and the prosecutor were not very forthcoming with any details, and understandably so. There's an open investigation,
Right.
but they were very they held the details very close. They didn't really want to talk to us in depth about most of this. I think they
Mhm.
probably spoke more about it to us than they have done before, and which makes it the most comprehensive look at Dulce's
Mhm.
case that we've seen, especially on television and on digital. This is on our streaming services as well. So I think that um, it was important for us to ask those questions and keep on them to see what more they would tell us. And they know that we've had many conversations with them um, after after the actual video interview,
Mhm.
follow-up questions where they've said like, nice try, we're not going to tell you that.
Yeah.
I think of the search warrant where it was, nice try, I'm not going to confirm that.
Yeah.
Right, but so I think that is something that we've that's what we do. We ask hard questions. And let's go to the park, the mayor interview,
Oh.
um, where he sort of sets the stage of the park, and it's actually a sort of a fantastic park in the sense of ball fields and a zoo and all of these really cool activities.
There's a splash pad, which is great. I was like, my gosh, my daughter would love going to that splash pad. And then the zoo's beautiful. We walked through it, and there's like tigers and all sorts of wild cats, and it's pretty cool. Like, and the mayor says that the people from Bridgeton are very proud to have this park, and they should be. It's a fabulous
Yeah.
park. Unfortunately now, it's known for the disappearance of Dulce, but hopefully, as the mayor said, they want to remove that stain from Bridgeton.
And the cameras, which is an issue throughout this story, right? No
Yeah.
cameras in there. Um, in the park itself, in the playground area of the
Mhm.
park, but other areas. Go through that, because obviously we spend a lot of time in our
Yeah.
office where I'm sitting talking about cameras and those things.
Well, I would say that was probably one of the most frustrating parts of it because, as you said, during all the interviews, the issue of cameras came up that they couldn't see what happened to Dulce because there weren't cameras. The cameras that they did have further down the road were motion detected and spotty, so they couldn't really say for sure that they saw every car that went in or out. So this had been an issue in their investigation early on. And Noema has since been asking for them to put cameras in the playground. That's been sort of her advocacy. So we, of course, asked, well, what happened to the cameras? Are you going to put cameras? And their initial response, or the mayor's response, is, oh, yeah, we put cameras. And we asked, well, great, where? And he said, well, I can't share that because we don't want to reveal where the cameras are, which was just like a strange response that I thought. And I said, well, you can't, I mean, if it's a publicly funded surveillance system, there has to be a public record behind it. And I think that's where some of like our investigative reporting skills come into play, where I said, well, we got to put in a public records request because you can't just say, yes, we have them, but I'm not going to tell you where. So that was, we start off with that frustration. So then we put a
Right.
public records request. And the way that I phrased it was I wanted to see any budget in the last, I forget, I did it starting in 2019. Since 2019, any budgetary spending for any surveillance systems at Bridgeton City Park, as well as any minutes from either city council or any other board within the city that would have approval of such cameras, when those were approved and what they were approved for. So we put that request in, and they replied to us, and we actually got the records that in October of 2020, the city had agreed to pay for a whole new surveillance system at the Hall of Fame building, which is across the street from the basketball courts, which is next to the playground, and then also the splash pad across the zoo and Sunset Lake. So once we got that information, I said, well, that's interesting because the Hall of Fame building, like, is, you have the basketball courts in between the Hall of Fame building and then the playground. So to me, just knowing the geography of it, I said, well, I don't know that cameras there would see what goes on in the playground. So let me get some clarity on that. So I reached out to the mayor for a few weeks, did not hear back. Then we went to see if we could catch up with him.
Mm-hmm.
He runs a nonprofit. So because Bridgeton's a small town, mayor's a part-time job. his full-time job is running a nonprofit. So we went out there and spoke to him, and he said that he believed that those cameras captured what's happening at the playground. And he said, I forget what the exact quote was, but it was along the lines of that he was confident that it would capture what was going on at the playground. So we wanted to see for ourselves, and another public records request that then we did was surveillance. So we wanted actual surveillance of those cameras at the Hall of Fame building for a particular date and time when we knew we were there. So we knew what to look for. And sure enough, they shared that with us relatively quickly, which is really nice. I'm used to records requests here in Philly taking months and months, and usually they somehow deny them. So I have to give it to Bridgeton. It was literally within a day they turned around that video, which was amazing. And I'm so thankful to them for their transparency in that sense, whoever handles their public records request. So we got that video and we included some of that in the documentary. And it shows the roads, but you can't really see the playground there. So we followed up with the police chief on the phone. We couldn't coordinate with him to go on camera again, but we spoke with him on the phone and he said, we'll be able to catch whoever's going in and out of that area. So we have to be strategic about where to place the cameras because we just can't place cameras everywhere. And then he said, if you put them in this playground, why not another playground? So that was his answer. And we shared that with Noema, who said, she'd still like to see cameras at that playground. So that's kind of a long story, but that's what happened with the cameras.
but it's important because cameras play an important role or don't play an important role in this story, right? That those last images of her in the convenience store are it. That's it. And there's not a lot in that besides that she was in there. This is what she was wearing. This is the ice cream she got. I will tell you that we did get an email from the prosecutor. She did watch. And said that she did appreciate our work. So that's very nice. And we hope she is doing well this evening. And maybe listen, if she wants to jump in with some questions or wants to jump in, we're more than happy to talk to her on this as well. Because I did find, again, she can't tell us everything. We understand that. And I think that because of the journalists we are and the questions we ask and how we are fair, she probably did open up a little bit more to us than maybe she did before. We appreciate that because the public needs to know these things. This is how things do get solved when the public knows more information. At least I think we share that opinion that the more the public knows, the better for them. And this is what we're trying to do.
Yeah, we just like to shine a light on things, and more light, the better. Light is the best disinfectant, right? Isn't that some saying like that?
Somebody says it. But we also had some great people work on this with us from the editors and photographers, Dan, Ed, Reese, Augie. Am I missing anybody?
No, it was 4 photographers. Yeah, they were all great.
Yeah, they
everybody
were
had
phenomenal. Yeah,
which is why you'll notice some of the shots are a little different looking and everything, but I think it adds a good variety to it. So it was great working with the overall team.
Yeah, it was a good team overall, and I just want to point out, I'm going to pull up one more comment that actually David Chen, who's running our digital team and a big part of our team, sent this comment over, because if you haven't watched it yet and you're just wondering what we are talking about, let me throw this up there. That it is on YouTube right now on our NBC 10 Philadelphia YouTube page. You can also catch it on our streaming channels if you have a Roku or a Peacock, Google TV, Zumo, Apple, or no, Fire TV. Am I missing one? I'm sure I'm missing Sony Plus, or not Sony, Samsung Plus, Samsung Plus TV. That's a thing. It's a thing. What are you laughing at? It's a thing.
Sony Plus? Well, no, because I feel like
it's Samsung Plus. I misspoke at first, but it's Samsung Plus. That one. Now you're agreeing. But anyway, it's on YouTube. You can watch the whole thing if you missed it. It's also going to replay at a very, 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 very special time this weekend. If you're a Saturday Night Live fan,
is there a new SNL? I don't even know. If there's a new one, then I think people will watch. If it's not new, I don't know.
Well, then it's new. We're just going to say they'll have to say it's new, and I have no idea. But it's going to replay right after SNL, like 1 a.m. on Sunday morning. So if you're a night owl and you want to take a look at it, it'll replay. But it's also, again, on our streaming channels. It'll be on all weekend. It's on NBC10.com. You'll be able to watch it there. And you'll also, again, on the YouTube channel, NBC 10 Philadelphia. So we have a lot of ways to check this out, a lot of ways to get the word out about Dulce and how to, just find out about hopefully where she is and what happened. Because that's sort of the goal of this whole thing, is to get the word out about this. Always even better. We got this one. Even better news. It's now on the NBC 10 app. Look at David is all over this.
Thank you, David. Woohoo,
Yes.
David for the win.
Yeah. So it's really amazing that this is getting out there. Our goal is at least 1 million views. So help us out with that. Help us out. Get people to watch it. Tell your friends. Share the links. Tell people to download this app, because it's worth getting out there and letting people know about this little girl who needs to be brought home. I think that's the most important thing. And we also have something else to help out with that. And this is the QR code. Go ahead, Claudia.
So the QR code will take which I know you've tested this. I'm actually going to test this live right now to just make sure it goes to the prosecutor's office. Supposed to go to prosecutor's office.
I have tested it.
You have? Well, because Jim, we're live here, but my thing says the QR code campaign has been disabled for some reason. So
maybe they're getting so many tips.
Oh, maybe. I hope. I don't know. But the phone number does work. That one is for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which you can also submit anonymous tips to them. They work with law enforcement agencies and, and have an open case on Dulce as well. So I think that's it on that.
Yeah. Yep. This is going to go out there, but I think we can wrap up unless there are any more burning questions. There's a couple wows in there. So
that's about bringing home this beautiful girl. Yeah.
Hopefully we can. Nellie, you're absolutely right. That's the point of why we do this and why we put it together, to shed light on it. And we had to get into some, topics and tell the family story while doing this, because that's also Dulce's story. So, that's what we'll, when you watch it, that's exactly what you see if you haven't seen it already.
Great. All right. So, okay. I guess it's my turn to wrap it up then. Well, thank you for, watching this. And then again, Somebody Knows Something, The Disappearance of Dulce is now streaming on NBC10.com and the streaming device or the streaming channels, the NBC 10 streaming channels on the devices listed below. So Peacock, Roku, Fire TV, Samsung TV Plus, Xumo Play, and Google TV. So just look for the NBC 10 channel on those and you can watch our documentary. And please let us know what you think, or if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out or place it in the comments. We'll be checking this Facebook Live later on too. So thank you. And thanks, Jim. Now it's time for us to, I guess.
Yeah. See you Monday.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.